Hey everyone, this is Mitch over at IndySoft. I hope you all are doing very well. This week we wanted to do a kind of an introductory training Tip Tuesday video, but about our new preventative maintenance features that we've added to the application. So this one does have a little bit of link to it. I apologize, but it is pretty thorough and in-depth about this new feature set, how to set it up, and how to enable it. So I'll jump right in.
First thing that we're going to go is give you a tour on how to enable these features, and then we'll jump right into how to actually set up a maintenance task and what the functionality looks like. So in the system, a couple things that when you do want to enable the preventative maintenance features, what you'll want to do is go to your preferences by user, and then when you get to that setting, you'll go to application settings, and the first thing we'll do is we'll turn on, which I already have selected, the preventative maintenance checkbox. This essentially states for this particular user, this user will have preventative maintenance activities available. So in the system, once you check that user preference, what will also be made visible is what's called the task editor. So this here is just under the options icon where you can go here and you'll see the task editor. You can also make that visible on your various dashboards. You can see over here on the right, I've made mine visible just right here on the top right side. So in a moment, I'm going to open up the task editor, show you how to create a task, and then we'll of course go assign a task to an instrument as well. But what I would like to do is start off by illustrating what a maintenance task actually looks like when we're performing an event. So what I have in the system is I've got a particular piece of equipment or an asset. I've just called this Fleet Vehicle 2. Just like a piece of calibrated equipment or tooling maintenance equipment, you'll have all of your different nomenclature fields and descriptors. In my case, what I want to do is I want to go straight down to the scheduling tab. Now, you'll notice what's different about the scheduling with maintenance is we allow you to have multiple types of the same schedule, and then you assign a task to that. So actually this asset's one that I cloned. What I actually want to do is I want to delete these, and I want to start from scratch so you can see how we allocate an asset here, a schedule. So in calibration, what we've always done is we've used the standard add a schedule type. However, when you enable that preventative maintenance checkbox, we have a new icon that's available to you, and it's called add a task schedule, because essentially what we're doing is we're creating a schedule and assigning a task to that. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this icon. Inside of here, my schedule type for myself is going to be maintenance. This is still a drop-down list that you are able to set up and configure, and then you can set that up under your system-wide add edit list just like in the past. In my case though, when I choose that maintenance schedule type, what we're going to see is a drop-down list of the various different tasks that I've created in my system. So let's say we have a full fleet vehicle maintenance that we do once a year, right? What I'll do is I'll specify this task, and again, these are already pre-configured in my system. And then what we'll do is we can set our frequency and interval on that task, and then if we know the last date that it was performed, so very, very similar to scheduling just like we did in the past. Okay, so when we select OK, what we're going to see, and on this particular one I chose accumulation, I didn't mean to do that, but if I go in here and set that, you're going to see there's my schedule of April 8th, and then this was going to be due at the end of the month. That's also because I have end of the month scheduling turned on, which is another feature set that's available to you. So what I've got is I've got every 12 months, I'm going to do a full fleet vehicle maintenance. But let's say on maybe a 6-month interval, I'm going to have a different task associated. So what I'll do is I'll go and add again another task schedule. Now this again is going to be my maintenance task or our maintenance schedule type. I'm going to choose a different task list. Let's just say that we're going to do a simple oil and clean, and we're going to do that every 6 months. And in my case, let's say that last one was done on June 3rd. So again, we're just going to recalculate when that next schedule is due based on that task name. Okay, so inside of here, I have two different tasks, different schedules and intervals, and then different tasks associated to that schedule type. Of course, we can create multiple of these if necessary. Now, what you'll also notice is I've got two different due dates on this particular asset right now, and neither of those are due or are coming due within the next 7 days. So the reason I bring that up is let's create a third task, and I'm going to make that one due within the upcoming days. So let's say I want to have another maintenance task, and let's choose a very simple wiper blade replacement, and let's say I want to do that every 3 months. And let's go back and say that this one was done last on February 4th, which means this one's actually going to be past due. So now I actually have a past due schedule, okay? So the reason I wanted to actually set up this piece of equipment or asset with a past due schedule is when we go to perform our events that we allow you to configure, you can actually set it to where if the schedule type is past due or coming due within a certain number of days, it'll actually auto-select that task type for you. So what I'm going to do is this particular tool, Fleet Vehicle 2, I have built a very simple workflow where I can create a preventative maintenance work order. This is of course optional. You can go in here and jump right into a maintenance event or an unscheduled maintenance event. That's truly just up to you on how you want to configure your workflow. Okay, we'll get into the workflow configuration settings towards the end of this video. But let's say on this particular tool, I do want to create a workflow or a work order. So I'm going to run my create PM work order. Inside of here, I can choose a maintenance type of either scheduled or unscheduled. Let's say in my case, this is going to be a scheduled maintenance type. And then here, we'll actually just add our asset. So I just keyed in Fleet Vehicle 2. Inside of here, work order 21 is going to be created. Just like work orders in the remainder of the calibration system, you do have the ability to put multiple assets on the same work order. So I'll finish this and mark this as complete. So inside of here, well, this is just a confirmation dialog letting me know that my scheduled maintenance event is now scheduled. That work order has been created. So that's just a standard confirmation dialog that our system provides. Now in the system, you're going to see my status was changed to awaiting scheduled maintenance. We're going to see on the flow chart, it's moved to awaiting scheduled maintenance. Again, the workflow is something that you are entitled to configure to your needs, okay? So inside of here, what we need to do is we need to run that scheduled maintenance on that one particular schedule type. So you can see here on the flow chart, that's there. Behind the scenes, I actually did create work order number 21. So if we go to the work order system, we can pull that work order up. Here's the date that it was opened. And here's that scheduled work order line item that's in the system. So that's, of course, the work order system has not changed. We're just simply adding a different type of scheduled event for that work order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch my scheduled maintenance event. Now these events are configurable. I've got mine set up very simple, where I'm just capturing who's performing it, what date, what time, and I'm giving the opportunity for comments. Now the next step is where you're going to see our task, okay? So you'll notice this particular asset, Fleet Vehicle 2, has 3 different tasks. However, only one of these is pre-selected. So this is my wiper blade replacement task. And you can move around the screens, etc. But when I select on this particular task, it's pre-selected. It's going to show my due date here. You can actually kind of move this around. Let me maximize this just to maximize our real estate here. So inside of here, I can see that this one particular schedule, it's due, well, it's technically past due. So it was pre-selected. So inside of here, I can go in here and fill out my task, right? In this case, this is nothing but a simple text field that I've created, and I'm just going to put it in 22 inch. Replacement needed. I'm just going to go ahead and say yes to that. And then, maybe visual inspection on these. Let's just say yes. So these are fields that you get to create, which you'll see in just a moment. And you can even create drop-down list and multiple choice list and things along those lines. So in my case, you'll notice I'm only going to perform the wiper blade replacement. So when I hit next, we do allow you to attach documentation. So if you want to attach documents, this is just another workflow configuration setting. But when we hit finish and complete this asset was on work order 21. So we're going to go ahead and complete that. Now you're going to notice that on the wiper blade replacement, my schedule was updated on 6/17. So now I have a new due date. Okay. So inside of here, essentially we're only going to update the schedule that you actually perform the task on. Okay. So now let's assume that something happened with this particular fleet vehicle and we need to create an unscheduled work order. Let's say that the engine started having hiccups and we wanted to do something to this asset. Well, what we can do because we can still create a preventative maintenance work order. Inside of here this time, I may choose an unscheduled maintenance type. Now really what this is doing is going to create work order 22. It's simply just going to change my status to awaiting unscheduled maintenance. That's again because of my workflow that I have configured. So when I finish this, mark it as complete. Again, there's a confirmation dialog. Now I have an unscheduled maintenance that needs to be performed on this particular asset. So now you'll see here, I actually have this one set up where it automatically prompts going to execute that event. That's just a setting that you can apply if needed. But I'm going to close this out because this tool or this asset, it's now awaiting unscheduled maintenance. Okay. The work order, you'll see again, there's work order number 22. Well, I need to go pull that up. There's work order 22, which I believe we created. Let's see here. But what we'll do is, in the system, we can create again the work orders. You're going to see that this status is now awaiting unscheduled maintenance. So what your operator would do is, based on the notes they've been provided, they would perform the appropriate maintenance schedule. So inside of here, I'll go in to execute my unscheduled maintenance event. Now this particular time, there's my same fields as before. You can select next, but none of my schedules are pre-selected, right? So let's say I just wanted to do a full fleet vehicle maintenance. You would simply just check that box. And what that does is based on which task name you select, will give you that task worksheet over on the right side. So for me, I want to go in and select that I want to do the full fleet vehicle maintenance. This particular sheet, I've just set this one up a little bit different, where now I've got my inspection column, my repaired and adjusted, my greased and lubed. So we'll get into how to create these tasks in just a moment. But inside of here, let's just say I just did an oil change filter. Yes. Let's say I checked the fuel lines and the tank cap. Let's say we did the spark plugs along with the fuel filter. So essentially, I'm just going in here and checking these. Now again, I've created these where I only flag this if I had to repair or adjust something. So let's say that, on this particular one, when we got to the water pump, I realized that the water pump needed repair, right? So I'll just select yes, and potentially even add some comments. And I'll just say I replaced water pump. It's a real simple comment there. So again, you can create in these fields as required when you're creating these tasks. Again, we'll get into that, but we're only updating the fleet vehicle maintenance schedule this time. So just like before, should you have a need to attach any paperwork, you can, but I'll just hit finish, mark this as complete. So now what we're going to see is now the full fleet vehicle maintenance, it was completed today. So now this is going to be due next June as well. Now, in your history grid, right, we're also capturing all this historical information. So you're going to see there's the work order we did beforehand. There is the scheduled maintenance, and there's the maintenance task. So on that first one, I just did the simple wiper blade replacement. But then on that second one that we did, you'll see the unscheduled maintenance. We're going to go in here and we're going to see that full checklist that was created. So again, you can perform multiple tasks at the same time if necessary as well. You just select both when you're performing that event. So what I want to show you is how we actually set up a task. And I will point out too, before we go and create a task, I kind of failed to mention this earlier, is let's say we have a new asset in the system. And let's say this is just a unique tool. And let's say fleet vehicle number 3, okay? So inside of here, you'll notice this particular fleet vehicle, it's not connected to any template. So when I go to my scheduling tab and I try to add a task schedule, we're going to give you a warning that says the tool or the asset must be linked to a template. The reason for that is in the database, you're going to have several hundreds of task lists potentially. So we have to know which type of asset it is in order to give you a drop-down list of the task list available. So we do that by using our templates, okay? So this is a pre-existing concept in the database, but if I go and hit edit, and let's say that I want to attach this, and I've got a fleet vehicle template in here. Let me just see here what I name that. I actually forgot what I named that template, so Tell you what I'm going to do, because I forgot which template that was. I'm just going to go back to the prior asset. Oh, sample fleet vehicle. That's I forgot my own naming nomenclature there, so sorry about that. And I went to open the template editor by clicking the wrong icon, but let's go to my sample fleet vehicle. So what this is doing is simply just saying this particular asset is tied to this higher parent. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and associate that. Oops, that was me clicking just a little bit fast there, so sorry about that. So now this tool, it's connected to that sample fleet vehicle. Now that enables me to actually go in and choose the maintenance tasks that are necessary. So essentially we're going to see in the very next thing I'm going to show you is when you create a maintenance task, you have to say that that maintenance task belongs to which template. Okay, so let's go back to our home screen. Let's actually create a maintenance task. So inside of here, I'm going to go to my task editor. Again, you can open that up via the options menu here, or if you've chosen to put it on your layouts, you can certainly do that as well. So inside of here, in my case, I've only got, well, you'll see the templates and the tasks that I've created. But let's say that we wanted to create a new task. There are options in here where you can go and view the latest tasks that you've looked at. Of course, you can navigate through them consistent with the way we do that in the software already. And of course, we give you a search for option where you can search for a particular task just in case you needed to make a change or look for one that you've already got created. And you'll see that, again, all the tasks are tied to a particular template. So let's close this out. And inside of here, I want to create a new task. So when we do that, the first thing we're going to do is identify which template this task is for. So it retains whatever was there last. However, I could go here and I can navigate out. So you may have, for forklifts, you may have one set of tasks. For fleet vehicles, another set of tasks. For CMM machines, another set of tasks. So again, you're going to create templates for those parents or those hierarchy types. Okay. So in my case, I am going to tie this to my sample fleet vehicle. And then what we're going to do is we're going to give this a name now. So in my case, we'll just call this training test sample. Okay. Or I could, you know what, this is a sample fleet vehicle, so let's make this more realistic. Let's make this a tire rotation. Now inside of here, you can have revision controls when you create your task. So I'll select OK. So now at this point, I have an entire rotation task that is going to be tied to my sample fleet vehicle template. There are some alternate fields that you can set up in here. This is sort of like a template editor where you may have notes, you can have the description of this task, the estimated time you think it should take to complete this, and if you want this task to update a schedule or not. So that's certainly an option available to you. Now, there are also a few other things in here. We do have a task change log. You also have charges, notes, docs, default service repair parts. You can even set up a task team, which would be a list of employees who should be responsible for this task. This can come into play when you're doing scheduling in the system. So we do have a change log, of course. You know, this is so far, this is kind of like your audit log. All I've done is I've simply just created it so far. But what I want to point out is this task is still in development. You're going to notice that we've got a drop-down menu where the task can be in testing, production, archived, or in development. In order to actually use this task, it does need to be in the production status. Okay, so currently we are still developing it, so I'm going to leave it in that status. Now, what we're going to do is go over to the task document tab. This is where we create that worksheet. So this takes on the same set of tools that we use in Layout Builder throughout the system. So let me maximize that. And what we're going to do is we have the ability to make a table, and then you can include your equipment and event fields if necessary. But what you'll really do is you're going to use the attributes. This is where you're going to create your own custom fields for this task. So I'm going to do a combination of fields and attributes. But the first thing I want to do is create a table. So let's say that I want this to have, let's just say in my case, a 4x4. So you'll notice it creates kind of a header, and then now I've got various different places where I can insert data. And 4x4 might be maybe too many, so I'll just delete this table, And then in my case, I'm just simply rotating the tires. But you may have a few other checklists too, like did you check the brakes? Did you notice any abnormal wear and tear? So you may have some miscellaneous questions like that also. So let's create something like that. Let's actually go in and let's create a table. And I'll do a 2x4 or 4x2 this time. So what I can do is my tire rotation task, I'll just type this in. And you may want to go in and do like some center adjustments. You know, it's very Microsoft-esque. But what we want to do is we're going to include our fields, right? So now you actually have the ability, I may want to include my asset ID. So I could simply just come here, double click, and that'll add in my asset ID. So this is actually taking over the same thing that we do with Layout Builder currently. Now in my case, I'll remove this, but let's actually say that I want the field name plus the value. So I'll just choose ID, which actually that's not a, I can't make that a hyperlink. So I'll do, let's just do the field name first. So we'll grab ID, and then right beside that, let's grab the value. Okay, so I've got my ID, equipment number. There could be some other things that you may want to see visible in there, maybe a few other equipment characteristics or even event characteristic fields. But let's say over here on the right, I want to have a field that says, did you rotate the tires? Did you notice any abnormal wear and tear? And did you visually inspect the brakes? So let's say those are my three fields. Well, what we will do is we're going to go to the attributes table or tab, and we're going to create those as fields. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to select new task attribute. Inside of here, the name of this will be where tires rotated. Okay, now this could be a required field, could be a drop-down field, or just a view only. So if you just want to give some instructions, but your field types are various. So these are all the same attribute field types that again, that you have consistent with the software in workflow configuration and other areas. In my case, I'm going to make this a Boolean field. Now I do need one more. I also need a notice. Okay, let's just say abnormal wear and tear. We'll just say abnormal wear. And again, that'll be a Boolean in my case as well. And then my next one is going to be, let's just say if you have any inspection comments. And then here, I may want to make that a memo field. So you'll see our memo option. But you have text, numeric, Boolean. You can create custom drop-down menus if needed. So now we've created our custom fields for this task. We simply are just going to insert those over here into our layout now. So let's say the first thing that we want to do is where the tires rotated. The next thing is going to be, did you notice any abnormal wear and tear? And I'm just simply double clicking. And what that's doing is that's placing that in that location right there. Now there could be some other things that when you print this out, you know, maybe you want your event date. So maybe you want something like this. I'll just type in date. And then now I may come over here and just plug in that date field, right? So there's oops, I actually grabbed the wrong one. So we can put that in. So you can put multiple fields in here. These are the accessible and available things to you. Just to cover what projects is, this is an area for essentially custom programming to be called out from a maintenance task. So if you happen to be using our scripting module, that's available. And then there's some other icons that you can make visible, like the back icon, the next icon. There's just a few things you can put in here. Access to the time log utility. So you can actually call out other additional things if needed over here on this miscellaneous tab, just in case you need that. So once we're finished with this task, and let's say we have this developed the way that we like, what we do is we save it. Okay. There is a test task button, so you can actually see what it'll look like. So if you want to modify colors or things along those lines, you most certainly can, but I'll just hit cancel on that. So I've saved my task. I'm going to go back over to my task details, and in my case, I need to put this in production now. So we'll go over there and mark this in production, check that in, okay? So now you can see my change log. I've modified it. I've checked it from being in production to now into development, or development to production, I should say. So let's say we want to use this task. Now in my case, I'm just going to minimize my task editor. That's open down here at the bottom now. But let's go back to my new fleet vehicle. and I'll add this in. So when I go to my schedule type of maintenance, we'll go to our task, and you're going to see that the tire rotation task is now in this drop-down list. And so you'll see here, if I want to go and select that, I certainly can. Now let's say you want this done every 3 months. Same as before, I can give it a schedule, I'll hit OK. So now the way that I have my workflow set up is I don't require it to be on a work order, but let's say I want to go in and perform an unscheduled maintenance on this asset, or scheduled, either one. When I launch this now, there's my event information, here's my task, I can check that, and then now I can actually go in and fill out my fields. Okay, so I can actually set up my tires rotated, my date, my time, etc. I have that capability if I wanted to. And we'll just go in here and do that. Let's say my tires were rotated, and I did not notice any abnormal wear. So I could fill out these fields if needed. I complete this. So what we'll see is in the history grid, again, now we've completed that tire rotation. You're going to see on our scheduling tab, we performed that today, therefore it's due 3 months from now at the end of the month. But essentially, that is the task system. You're going to use that task editor, tie a task to a template, and then simply just assign the task to a piece of, or not a piece, but an asset or a tool in the database. Now, let's talk about some of the things in workflow configuration that also need to be enabled. So we talked about the first thing you have to do to set up and use the maintenance tools is you have to go to your preferences by user, and you have to go in there to the application settings and check preventative maintenance. So this is important for existing installs, of course. But what you also have to do is configure your workflow. So I'm going to point out the things that are new that are applicable to preventative maintenance. So when we open up the workflow configuration tool, and you can see I was looking at my scheduled maintenance event already, and this was a new event that I created for this video. So inside of here, what we're going to go to is, of course, you have your steps and your fields that are available to you, but under step 3, we actually now have what's called your maintenance task. So that's one of the screens that you can make visible. So for me, my first screen is my event information, but then I have my task, and then I have my documents next. So if you do want to use the task, you will need to enable this screen here. The next thing that's going to be new in workflow configuration is going to be under step number 7. You're going to see the scheduling type. So we have to tell the system this particular event, you have to tell it that it can update a schedule. So for me, I have it updating my maintenance schedule. I do have it set up to where it's going to use my system-wide due date options. That's why we saw it going to the end of the month earlier. But when it is a task schedule, you'll see this bottom option down here where it says the task selection window. And it tells you it's preventative maintenance only. What this will do is if you go to run an event, the tasks are turned on, and if a task schedule is coming due within 7 days or past due, we're going to go ahead and pre-select that. You can actually set this value to anything you desire. So this is by default, it will be 7, but you have the ability to set that to something different. The only other thing that's changed in workflow configuration and that's applicable to task is going to be this task options tab. We of course give you the ability to email those documents just like we have throughout the rest of the system with workflow configuration and printing forms, etc. But you also have the ability to print tasks, and you can even combine the task into the same document. So let's say at the same time we choose to do a full fleet vehicle maintenance plus a wiper blade replacement task, and we do both at the same time. You can actually set it up where it'll just combine that document. So for illustration purposes, if I go back to fleet vehicle number 1 in my database, go to my history, this is one that I've used quite a bit here. But inside of here, you'll notice on this date and time, I performed 2 different tasks. So it actually included those 2 documents as 2 separate individual PDFs. However, if I scroll through here, there's probably some scenarios where I've combined those, potentially. And just looking throughout my history, this is a sample database, of course. And I potentially may not have done that, but there is a setting where you can just combine your documents when you complete those. And I actually don't have any of those visible there, but that's okay. But what this setting does is it'll take those tasks, like in the case when I had the 2 tasks earlier, is it'll just combine those into one PDF if you want that to be configured and set up. So the 3 changes in workflow configuration are going to be under step 3, you have to enable the task. Under step 7, you have the ability when you have your schedule rule to set this to be automatically selected if it's coming due within 7 days or whatever you set that at. And then the other thing is under step 8, the task options tab on you either emailing or printing those documents if necessary.
All right, so I know that was kind of long. I am super apologetic about that, but there is a little bit of substance in there and quite a bit of information on how to get that going, how to get it set up. I definitely think it's a great feature set. I hope you all enjoy it. After watching this, should any of you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to myself, our account management team, or our support team as well. Have a great week, and thank you.